I'm sorry, we don't have any
to the
Chromebooks
15th
left,
agenda.
so don't ask for
Go
them.
back, go to the
Because they just
15th
were
agenda.
not available.
I went to this meeting.
And
Yeah, we
neither is
don't
the
need that,
power
we need
strip
the 15th.
or the earphones.
This meeting is to review the 15th agenda.
I'm with you.
Excuse me.
All right, we'll call to order this workshop for December 7th.
Like it was an hour ago.
Feels like 7.
Feels like a whole nother day. Okay, so, Mrs. Bush, do we have an agenda on this one, or?
You do, but it's just the one item.
All right.
So,
So we're here today to do a review of our agenda for the future. The superintendent has wanted to establish these meetings so that we can go through each item as necessary and ask whatever questions we've got. And hopefully that will answer all our questions here in this meeting, and our general meetings will move along a little quicker. And so, Mr. Superintendent?
yes ma'am, so thank you for, engaging today. Today's our first trial for our agenda run. We will always present it and so that you can see through our display. But I know that this was a fast turnaround. We released it yesterday afternoon, and you had opportunity to look at it yesterday afternoon, this evening, and then early this morning. Moving forward, we will always give it to you on a Friday. That way you'll have 3 or 4 days to look at it prior to coming in, so you can bring any questions that you may have, because that's only fair to you. Due to the quick turnaround that I wanted to put in new systems, we own the inability for you to have real depth view of it, and only a short period of time. But moving forward, you'll have between 3 to 4 days, or 4 or 5 days to look at it in order to create and craft any questions. As the chairperson, Ms. Carrick, said, the end of the day, this is for us to really go through every item so that we can have any questions that you may have of me as superintendent, along with staff that we have here today, so that we can problem solve and have a better lens of, you'll have a better lens of what we're trying to accomplish, and that we can ask and answer any questions that you may need us to do in reference to tighten up on our agendas items in order to move forward collectively. So we'll start with the first part. The first part is just standard, recognitions and awards. This is a part where we will recognize a number of students who were winners of the National Art Contest, or Art Contest. The Art Contest was an opportunity for 6 students who will be recipients to identify what issues that they would address if they were the U.S. president, and they displayed that through art. So we'll highlight them. We will also highlight a teacher from Lake Asbury Junior High for the excellence for teaching students through emotional and behavioral disabilities. So just an opportunity to celebrate and highlight this individual for their best practices within our schools and more importantly within our county. We will also highlight and recognize Fluent High School swim team. They came in second as a team holistically in the states. We did have 2 individuals that actually won state, and one of the relay team won state as well. And then finally, we will look at the State Jen Harbin Student Media Festival recognition. We will recognize schools to be honored in this area for their best practices, schools and also students. In moving forward.
Do we get to see any of the videos?
I don't know.
I'm a star in one of
She
them.
usually
I'll have you know.
shows,
State
yeah,
winner.
she usually
State
shows
winner.
1 or 2. Can I interrupt you for a minute
Sure.
before you go further?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you all noticed the new format for the agenda, and before we go forward, I want to make sure everybody likes that and we're all okay with it. Mr. Davis wants to start out with a student showcase at the beginning of each meeting. So before we start, there might be a chorus or...
Yes, ma'am. What I want to do is we always talk about kids. Let's get kids in front of our community. Let's get kids in front of, it's all about, and they can watch it live online, and we can just bring the value of a child-centric mentality back to this district. And I would love to have a student showcase every month, whether it be robotics, whether it be someone singing, whether it be a instrumental, whatever it may be, in order to highlight our students within our county. So many great things are happening, and I think we need to get a part where we start off with kids in mind in the beginning of our meetings and set the tone.
The other big change is moving the public comment up to the beginning of the meeting so that people who want to speak, they're not waiting till 4 hours into our meeting. It's almost disrespectful to some of those people who have
Just a general comment.
Yeah, they have to wait till the very end, so, if everybody's in favor, we'll follow.
Through the 10-minute speakers.
They're still here, they're just a little further down.
So, and through the chair, I agree. In the 16 months of me coming to our board meetings, I believe that we owe it to the public to put them up front. Hence the reason that I'd like them to be up front, and I agree that we should hear their voice early, and that we can problem solve in order to better help them. And it gives them, it allows them to defend their time as well, versus staying for hours and hours on our time. I think it's valuable for us to understand, to validate the great things that they want public comment on, and also to identify areas of opportunity.
Scheduled citizens way down there still.
You've got, so the 10-minute speakers will be at the very end of the meeting?
Yes, ma'am, and I'd like to speak to that when we get to that part, or we can do it now.
I just wondered why you moved.
Yeah, I really would like to eliminate 10 minutes and see if we can move that to 3 minutes. I think 10 minutes is, you get to a point where it gets drawn out and somewhat overwhelming. I think 3 minutes is adequate, and any time that we have individuals that come and speak for 3 minutes anyways, I will always have staff that go to the back of the room to help them to problem solve, and I will provide you through an update as I did the other day after our board meeting. I know that one of the issues was that we had some concerns about song selections. I just finalized that beginning of the week, in the last week, beginning of this week, so I'll send you an update. But I had immediately Mr. Wingate go to the back and problem solve with that individual. So, but all that to say is, I don't know if we can change this here about 10 minutes to 3 minutes, or does that have to be down the road?
But it can be put on our agenda for the next meeting,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
what we would do is, we wouldn't change scheduled citizens request to 3 minutes, we would just eliminate it altogether, because according to state statute, everybody is required to have 3 minutes on any topic at all.
Yes, ma'am.
They can come and say the sky is green and the grass is blue, and we've had some bizarre stuff like that, so, we would need to just delete it altogether if that's what the board as a whole wanted.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we talk about school showcase. Not only do I want to start with kids, but I also want to get to point at the recognitions and awards to start highlighting schools. And we will go by district, by board member. If there's a school that you would like to see moving forward, then we will bring that individual school, and they can just get 3 to 5 minutes just to celebrate. And as we open up to House Bill 7029 and our entire seats become available through any district, surrounding district, or internally, now's about recruiting and marketing our schools, and not a better way to do it when we have a captive audience, and also this is streamed live. So I've, in order for us to, if you agree to move forward, I've asked Middleburg High School to be the ones to start off and initiate it. For those of y'all, everyone that walked, you see, they had great things, and why not let Mr. Feldner tell a story?
Yeah, I think that's great. Does everybody like that?
Now, can the schools do it any way they want to?
So I
So
will
for
probably,
instance, if a school wants to say, you know what, we just did this great PowerPoint or this great film
Yeah.
about everything
Yep.
that's going on for
Yep.
even like the teacher of the year, sometimes they'll do videos
Right.
and stuff.
so every school, yes ma'am, to answer your question through the chair, every school will have an opportunity to do PowerPoint. PowerPoint presentation, and they want to infuse video, or they want to have not only administrators but teachers and kids talk about their programmatic opportunities. I'm all for it. I just want to celebrate what they're doing in order to keep them relevant in the choice as students transition from one school to another.
How long are their presentations going to be?
3 to 5 minutes. 5 minutes max. I don't want to do anything, and I'm thinking more 3 to 4 minutes.
It just occurs to me, we have 41 schools,
Yeah.
so it could be 4 years before somebody gets on the agenda.
Yeah, no, I thought about it the other day. I'm going, I'm only gonna get one school.
So, I mean, if we limit them to 3 to 5,
Yeah,
maybe we could
you
do
can
2
say.
or 3.
Yeah, I am open to whatever this board wants to do, as long as I just want to have our principals to be able to tell
You
a
know, what
story.
you could do is the showcase in the beginning, you can rotate schools with that too. So you could start at elementary and high school and work to the middle or something, and
At least it's only 2
anyway,
years
it's
already.
only 20 something then.
So, can we do this, and maybe this is a recommendation, can we try and see how the first school does with Middleburg? If we feel that we've done all of our work here, the meeting's kind of going fluently, then we can add another one at for the next one?
Sure.
Is that also okay? Awesome.
Well, and through the, sorry, if I can, is that all right? Sorry. Through the recognition and the awards, though, you're also showcasing some of the schools.
Yes, we are.
I mean, via that, so it's
Yeah.
sort
Yes,
of a
ma'am.
group thing, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
There was something that, this is not on the agenda, but I had asked Mr. Davis, the bulletin boards that we have in the back of the room that are, you know, the glass cases, I've asked if he can arrange some kind of program so that the art teachers every month will have a different school's artwork display. They do it in the county commission office
They do
or
it,
building.
and we don't.
And we don't, and
Okay, good.
it's been a couple of years that I brought it up and mentioned it, and we've had no traction, but I really believe that he's gonna light a fire under someone to
Madam
get it.
Chairman, if I could add to that, though, some of the schools do not have art programs. And instead of just opening up to just the art programs, if we could open up to other programs that
Yeah.
have creative influences.
Yeah, the school can spotlight
I'd
something,
like to see
yeah.
art programs.
Through the chair, I do agree that room really has to become, it has to start to feel like learning's taking place.
Mhm.
And right now, that environment doesn't exist, so we'll work on drawing some plans up of what it may actually look like, and we'll get your feedback on that moving forward, if you're okay with that. Just give me some time to think about what it looks like. Okay? Okay, so we'll go to the next one, which is the minutes of hearing for November the 17th and organization regular meeting, November 22nd meeting minutes. This is just where we'll go through it and approve any minutes that we've had through those organization and regular meeting minutes. So as you get a chance to look through it, you know, today or the next day or so, if there's anything that you may want to make the adjustments, please make sure those adjustments are made so we can approve it.
And I'd like to add something, Mrs. Bowl, I don't know if you're aware, but Mrs. Bush always sends those minutes out before they're posted
Yes.
to the agenda.
We already
So if
told
anybody
you.
sees anything, let her know then before she posts them.
We already received them, didn't
Yeah, there's a standpoint that if you see
Yeah.
something that needs to be changed, let her know before
You
she
can
posts
just
it.
email her, you don't have to wait for it to be
Right,
posted.
right. Thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am. All right, next one goes to proposed allocation changes for 16-17. There's a number of changes for allocations moving forward. The first wave is to add a .28 teacher to Keystone junior high, senior high. As you know, any 712 configuration or 612 configuration, in this case a 712 configuration, it's been very difficult to provide sufficient staff for electives in order to have lower class sizes in our arts classes, our music classes, and our physical education classes. We are seeing that at Keystone Senior High School that our physical education classes are large, and that we have a number of students that would like to take arts. So we have had conversations with the principal and through HR, and we have opportunity for the art teacher as elected and said that she would teach during her planning period in order to offer another section of art so we can get kids actively engaged in this process. This will cost $7,000 to pay for the remaining 6 months, and then lower our class sizes in physical education, and also provide another pathway for students to take art classes. The next one is a ESC, and anytime please stop me, is a ESC assistant that we have that is still due to mobility. When students move, we want to make sure that our services remain consistent. So we have a student moving from Lake Asbury Junior High School and is moving to Patterson, so that or Lake Asbury Elementary to Patterson, so that ESC assistant will be moving from one school to the other in order to provide those services, and that just needs to be duly noted in the allocation for each individual school, and no cost to the district. All right, next, for part of phase 1 reorganization, I'm asking to bring on a chief of staff. That individual will work in collaboration with the superintendent and also with the board. It will help, this individual will help continue the body of process that we have through any agenda reviews, any organizational reviews as it relates to working side by side with me. This individual would not only be able to help the superintendent with the daily operations and help senior staff, but this individual will help with our instructional lens, be able to analyze patterns and trends through data, and have the ability to look at curriculum maps and curriculum guides to better assist with formulating our direction within the school district. And part of this reorganization, We currently have a vacancy in IT, and Mr. Carl Hendricks in his division for a executive secretary, I believe. In this reorg, places the current executive secretary superintendent in that role, and you see the finances as presented within this org chart. Now, please know that the cost is not only salary, but it's also benefits as well. So please know that benefits is around, we always average between 20 and 25% in there in order to give a true representation of benefits. If you have any questions.
I just had one question on
Sure.
that. I know that, I guess, when I came on board, the executive secretary superintendent was also the board secretary.
Absolutely.
So how does that change?
Yeah, this individual will, the chief of staff will act and take on that role.
Okay.
If moving forward we feel that we still need to have additional assistance, then we can look to problem solve and moving for and see if the org structure looks different for 17, 18. But I'm committed if that needs to happen, if that needs to change. The next one is a coordinator, opening up the coordinator of communication and add-in media partnerships. This is, to be transparent, I think that this division can grow. This is not a, this division I think needs to grow. As you look at, you have 41 schools and so much going on through social media, through making certain that we track positive and negative weekly, monthly articles so we can always stay on the plus side. But I want to open this position up and add media partnerships because I believe that this is key in our place. And in that current individual who's in a coordinator of communication position will go into a administrator on special assignment. But still continue to work with communications in schools and as it relates to media outlay and media communications. All right. The next one is the coordinator of strategic planning and community partnership. This is somewhat different. This is a new role that I'm asking to bring to our district. Even though that the superintendent is not does not have an evaluation, I want to make sure that we have strategic partnerships and planning moving forward as we create initiatives, projects, and targets within our organization. This individual will come on board and make certain and be a liaison to the board as well to update you on data analytics of where we are with our initiatives, projects, and targets moving forward on a monthly basis, so that you can really see what we are doing as a district. This individual will help with the 100-day Elevate Clay transition plan. This individual will also continue to have community outreach and partnerships so that we can try to grow our in-kind money and also look at our public education fund in order to grow that to alleviate our fundings internally. When I say that, general revenue dollars. Asking that 4 current individuals go to administrator on special assignment. Those individuals' roles will be defined through the organization if this is approved. The individuals will continue to work in a capacity to help improve the experiences of our students until we complete the second phase of reorg, which will start in July 1/17. The next one is to approve somewhat of an allocation for Assistant Superintendent of Operations. We have the current Assistant Superintendent of Support Services will be retiring in the next by end of February, by March 1. This individual, rightfully so, has earned their time. So what I'm asking the board is to bring someone in to shadow this individual so they can understand our direction. With House Bill 7029 coming up with open enrollment, it's going to be very interesting in the coming months. So I believe that it's very important to have someone shadow the current Assistant Superintendent of Support Services to understand where we're going. And also we have some pockets that need to really look at whether we're going to reboundary for utilization, and also looking at potential builds in the years to come. I'm looking to change, it'll be the same role, may take on new responsibility, but this will be changing it from Assistant Superintendent of Support Services to Assistant Superintendent of Operations. And the next one is a new allocation for Assistant Superintendent of Climate and Culture. This is new. This is some of the trending positions in major districts. This is definitely needed in Clay County, as we always spoke about with our climate and culture being somewhat fragmented. We talk about giving teachers a sense of hope. But this individual will come on board and take on all the responsibilities of driving the climate and culture that deals with student wraparound services, student disciplines, student supports. Looking at this individual will also inherit ESE psychologist, a body of work through 504s. This individual will also work on the school improvement side to go and also train teachers to help them better understand how to leverage classroom management skills in order to focus on positive behavior supports, interventions, and supports versus being reactive to situations. This individual will also come help devise a thoughtful K-2 plan processing in order to better assist our students with behavior management at K-2. We know that as if we address kids in K-2 with the way they interact with self and others, then we will address the discipline problem as they spiral through 3-6, junior high, and also high school within this organization. And this individual will be tied to schools, all schools as well. And the last one it talks about the deduction of the supervisor of student services. The roles and responsibilities will be inherited to that division, and also the climate of culture. So ultimately, the total for the 6 months we're asking, that's on top of the buyout, and that's with benefits, is $255,000. To be transparent, 157 of that would not be reoccurring costs for 17-18. And the remaining $90,000+ will be cost neutral as part of my reorg in 2017-2018 school year. So you will not see an increase of assistant superintendents. It will all be neutral as we go to phase 2 reorganization. Okay. Any questions?
This is just maybe jumping ahead, but by policy, we, in the past, I'm not objecting, I'm just going back toward policy that we have approved job descriptions prior to approving allocations, and so I know that, I know you had spoken to at least me.
Yes, ma'am.
And said that time is of the essence, and I want to respect that, but are job descriptions following in this agenda?
Absolutely. As soon as you move through allocation, you go to job descriptions, and I'll ask Mr. Brodsky, we have to approve
Have to approve the job descriptions first,
then
the
allocation.
Why don't
allocation.
you
All right,
just
so
mark
what-
it
so-
on the agenda?
Yeah.
That's
switch
it.
it on
If
the
they're,
agenda.
Thank
if
you
they're all
very
voted
much.
on in the consent agenda, it happens all at the same time, you're good. But if anybody pulls it to the discussion agenda, then there's a coordination
They
of
both
that.
get pulled.
That's correct, and if we're and that's a good point, and thank you, awesome, because if anything is going to be pulled, I'm asking professionally, can we pull the job description first, and the allocation too? Is that correct, Mr. Brodsky?
That's
Way-
correct.
that
Have to
way.
be.
As long as they vote on the job description first, you're good.
Okay.
So if it's pulled for discussion and you put it
Yes,
down,
ma'am.
just put it in that order.
Yes, ma'am. And we'll get to that here in the next 2 items. If we go to any questions for allocation? So if we go to the next, this is a Florida Safe Schools Assessment Certification. This was the item,
You want to go to the personnel consent agenda next?
well, for some reason it's in this
Yeah,
order.
because they fall under deputy, and
Yeah,
All right.
personnel consent falls under HR.
yeah, I'm trying to, we'll clean that up. So the next one is the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Certification. This came to the board in November. There were some questions about the validity of our internal self-assessment. After review, we found that there were 3 areas that we could mark the in progress versus actually 4 areas that we can mark in progress in order, instead of being in compliance. These are areas such as emergency management, climate and culture, and I'll give you an example. Climate and culture requires that we create a crime watch initiative within our school district. We currently don't have that, so in order to us to be in compliance, we'll have to create that crime watch and then launch that through the community in order to better assist. The other program is the SAFE programs and Curricula. We will mark as in progress as well, and that is to a point where we're looking at making sure that we have a survey to our students that talks about bullying and threat, and have a perception that we have questions within our student surveys that reflect whether or not those are issues internally. We have global questions that ask them if they feel safe in their environment. But this tells us to go a little bit deeper and get to the granular level to make certain that we have bullying and threats as perceived by students within our surveys. We are working on that for 16, 17, and we will be compliant as we launch these and launch our questions moving forward.
Mrs. Bush, what item number is that?
It's on safe
I don't see it on
schools,
here.
C3.
I don't
What is it
have
down
a
there?
a
C3.
C3.
It goes C1, C2, C4.
Yeah, we don't have a
C3.
C3. I was looking, thinking, where
I
did
know it
we
was
put
here
it?
when I looked at
You know
this
what,
yesterday.
you know what, we had changed the matrix to make sure it reflected accurately,
put it
so
back
maybe
up.
it didn't load back up.
It's
I know I saw it
So-
yesterday.
I was looking everywhere thinking, well, I can't find
Yeah.
it.
I was going to approve it and it would not allow me to, so
Okay, hang on, it say, see where it's saying waiting approval, let me see if I can go ahead and approve it so that it.
So all the corrections to that were made.
Yes, ma'am. And the big one was facilities and equipment. In our facilities equipment, it makes certain that we have, and I'll give you, each educational facility has a security system and that is designed for security professionals. We don't have a security system in every one of our schools.
What about the health part of it, the health department, or the health education part of it? What I was informed was that our science teachers are not qualified to be teaching it, and I believe what you had on here was that our science teachers are going to be teaching it, and then there'd be an online portion, which, does that comply?
It does comply because it gets exposure to our students. And what it asks is that we make sure that we implement exposure to our students to health and drug prevention curricula. And where we put it, we have the option to determine where we put it. We could revisit it and make sure that it is infused in either physical education or, in physical education or in our health classes. Or we could even look at social education. We looked at some of the transition to science because some of our science standards may correlate with those.
And have you looked at the program that we used to have with the three health specialists that were eliminated last year
Yes.
for the junior highs?
I haven't looked at the curriculum. I've talked to a couple of personnel, but I'm gonna go deeper to see if that's something we need to bring back for reorg for 17, 18.
There was a lot of pushback to it at the time. And we had teachers, I believe, contact us about how important those three positions were, so I'd like you to look at it
Yes,
and
ma'am.
see if it's an option.
Can I ask staff, and just for my understanding, that was, those three individuals, so where did we infuse that curriculum?
I don't think we did, that's the
So that's,
problem.
so that's the fourth quarter implementation we're talking
I'm talking about for last year, for 15, 16,
about.
where
They finished out.
did those three individuals just go through school?
Yes, sir.
And, okay, and do we know how long, I guess,
There was a
honestly,
7-week course.
how many weeks?
I think seven times. Yeah, they had it, we'd be able to get you all the curriculum.
Alright, so I'll look at that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would it be an option to give teachers, if they're not comfortable covering the material, the opportunity to just give their students a website assignment so that it's a virtual learning portion of the classroom, or does it have to be a one-on-one instruction or
The
one-on-30
instructor has to
instruction?
be certified though, it's
Yeah.
just, not all of our teachers are.
That's what I'm
qualified
saying,
to
if you
teach.
do a Florida virtual course instead of.
but I can't see.
Yes. Mrs. Piper, would you like to add something?
I would, as I taught this for many years, 18 years I taught a health curriculum. This program was in the junior high level, okay? I think, Ms. Cornegay, was it, not grade 6, it was just 7?
7, 8.
We had two schools who requested the services.
Right, that's right. There was 2 elementaries that requested, but it's 7 and 8. It was always my experience, I'd always was leery. Some of the topics of this health curriculum is stuff that really needs guided instruction. I would be very leery to put it on as a digital assignment for 7th and 8th graders. They can't get, who the president is right. They certainly cannot get this stuff right, in my experiences, I am old though. Maybe they're smarter now than the kids were when I was there, but you really have to be explicit. It's the only place they get this information was in that health course. That's the only way. My concern, and I will honestly say my concern of my teachers, it was put back in, you asked Mr. Davis where it was put, that curriculum, it was put in the science curriculum. And the science teachers are just, I'm not teaching that. You know, I'll just wait till, I'll just not run out of time, and that will be this thing that suffers. Like, everything that teachers are uncomfortable with teaching, it's the one that suffers. So I don't go there if and that's what's happening with their teachers. I mean, whether they honestly want to tell you that, Mr. Davis, when you go visit, but there'll be a couple science teachers I'll be glad for you to have the conversation with. And these are a couple of our men science teachers, and I don't, they just have a problem with it. They don't want to go there, where those three roving people went.
But on the flip side of it, I actually have a child who went through it last year. And his discomfort was he had no idea who this stranger was coming into the classroom. So his connection was with his actual teacher, who had the rapport, had the validity, had the rep, So when this lady came in to their classroom and started talking about gonorrhea and syphilis and words he couldn't pronounce, and his eyes were this big around, and he said, "Mom, it really would have been, I don't think all the kids would have laughed had it been our regular teacher." So
And that's true,
think
and I never
there's
was in the situation that I wrote.
Right.
I had a relationship with my kids.
Yeah,
so.
so there's some,
What I would like to see is more parent engagement on this particular topic. It's a conversation that I had with, I want to say with Mr. Ranzant previously, but, and I don't know what that looks like, because I know parent engagement is difficult all the way around, no matter what you're trying to get them engaged with. But that's why I think, even if it's just a portion of it being online, that the parent signs a permission slip, or yes, I went through these questions with my child, just to engage parents. And this is a very social topic, so if
I will say that a letter comes home.
Right,
And a letter comes home that says your child's about to go through, it's say no to drugs, and it's not say no to sex, but I don't know what it is. But a letter does come through, and what they had done in the past was one, like fall semester, they did one of them, and spring they did the other, and then flip-flopped. The drugs part, the only thing that my feedback on that was maybe we need to do that younger. I mean, I've been pretty surprised at the amount of, drugs that, we saw on the news that they talked about Oak Leaf, and then obviously there've been some other ones in our other schools, and so maybe we need to start talking about drugs with these kids younger than 7th grade. Unfortunately.
I agree. I think there's a number of topics that we can bring and have discussions about, and especially in elementary, they got the Eddie Eagle, curriculum that talks about gun awareness, gun safety, from all the way to 9th and 10th grade, when it talks about the distractors for texting for 10th graders. So there's a number of programs that we can implement. That would have to be, and hopefully be in partnership with, that can be in partnership with our Clay County's Sheriff's Office along with our resource officers. But for this, we can look at defining any type of program in a lower grade level. But for now, I can go back and look and determine where.
If we were to re-engage with those three, or two of them or whatever, see what the cost would be.
how does this impact the element, I know we do, where we split the boys and the girls and talk about, they don't do that anymore?
No, and it's
When did they
unfortunate
stop
that they
Did it
don't.
last
I
year?
don't,
When you get to,
they did last year,
I had
where?
parent calls
best
last year.
practice.
I
In
think
what
the
grade?
school bus.
It might be those two elementaries that was involved in I don't know if they were split when they went in there. But
We
we
used
also
to.
have, we gotta remember, our science
We
books,
used
like
to.
somebody just said, I'd like to see it down lower. And, we're the only county in the entire state of Florida who has edited their Pearson science book and taken out a whole chapter.
Yeah.
What did we edit out?
Oh, the entire
We edited out this,
human biology.
Yeah.
yeah.
What?
And
sixth
so that's
grade?
why they didn't have, was
It's
it
in the
fifth grade or
teacher's
sixth?
manual,
I
it's
think
not
you're
in the student
kidding.
book.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
explicit.
this is the
It's really
reason,
explicit, yes.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
this is the reason that our science books, because there was a new adoption, was delayed. Because Pearson decided to print everybody else in the state of Florida. And these kids are asked that, okay? So somewhere they're gonna be asked these questions that we actually don't even address, and we've taken the chapter out because somewhere the decision was made that we shouldn't be teaching
And
this.
how long,
Come to the board.
and how long has that,
There was a new adoption last year, so that the books, this,
It came to the board.
recurred.
So-
it actually was
only
about
one county?
8 or 9 years ago that had happened, and the science teachers got together and said, this is an example, the science teachers got together for the adoption and said, I'm not comfortable in teaching it.
Mhm.
So therefore, decision was made to remove the chapter. And that's why if you look at our Pearson book, it's not the same as your Pearson book.
And that was 8 or 9 years ago?
No,
That's what
the
they told me, because I
adoption
went to
was
say,
last year.
who did this? And they said, we did.
Mhm.
The science teachers got together, we're not comfortable in teaching it, Brenly.
It was, did you see the textbook that the
No, man, I've never seen it.
The
No.
teacher edition of our textbook, of our science textbook in 6th grade, has the chapter. And we had a new teacher going to the 6th grade this year teaching science from 4th grade. And when she opened up her teacher textbook, she looked and she goes, oh my, I get to teach explicit body parts of both male and female to the class this year. This will be interesting. And I picked up a student edition, went to the exact same page, and I said, oh no, you don't have to teach it, it's not in the student book.
When you say
Explicit
explicit body
pictures of a
part,
penis, explicit pictures of a female's anatomy.
you don't think a 6th grader knows what that is?
No,
When-
Well, we
it's not
took it
a girl
out.
of a boy and a boy of a girl.
You're talking about teaching it in a science class. 5th graders are 10 and 11 years old.
Yeah,
Not
that's
all
too
of them
young.
have
No.
matured at the
Honey, I
same
didn't know there
rate.
was
And
Santa
6th
Claus till
grade-
6th
So I would say when you start to get into 5th, 6th grade, sex education starts, and whether
It does
it's through
start. And
whether
it's
it's through
unfortunate that we
health
took those
classes,
classes
whether
out.
it's through
Because
science
even if they're
classes,
uncomfortable,
the
they
conversation
don't.
had. So my understanding is that Ms. Condon is correct in saying that between 8 to 10 years ago, I guess the county elected to omit that section of the textbooks, and then when your adoption came, they just continued to print it the way it historically has been printed.
And if we took those 3
Correct.
teachers out in some area, I mean, we have
Correct.
Red Ribbon Week. We have 1 week of saying, say no to drugs in elementary. And when you talk to a 5th grader or a 6th grader, for the most part, they're going to bring in that naivete and say, oh, we'll never do that.
That's right.
And part of the discussion is truly, when you get into junior high, and speaking from a 5th grade classroom where my students did go into junior high, we talked and they ask questions, they generate the questions themselves. Well, how do you say no? It's very simple, you say no. No, thank you, no, I'm not interested, no, 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 just keep saying no. But those children are curious, and when they get into junior high, they are offered a joint, they're offered cigarettes, they're offered alcohol, and they can be in a situation where they feel incredibly
Not empowered to say
not
no.
empowered to say no. That's a great way of saying it, yes.
And that's what
And,
that
and
curriculum offers.
once they've hit that hurdle, once they've been able to either say no, or they succumb, it's like, now what do you do, you know? And going to the parents, I agree, parents should most definitely be involved with sex education. They should be involved with drug education. And there are parents out there, and I can hear again, speak from personal experience, who are scared to death to talk to their children about any of this.
Sure, it's like
And making those phone calls to the dad and saying, you really need to talk to your son about looking down the teacher's shirt is difficult. But it needs to be done because it's so incredibly obvious that it's like, let's move on, you know. But I'm not certain that we have a program out there right now.
We don't right now.
That
Right,
really,
we
and
don't.
Right.
Right.
we're conservative
So
council.
you'll look
Yeah.
into
We
that
want
for us?
Yes,
parents to be
ma'am.
more
And,
involved in that.
just bring back to us what you find and
Yes, ma'am.
if you're changing the science books, let us know.
Yes, ma'am. So I
Well,
definitely will look back
listen,
and
they won't change
determine
for
where
another
we will
6 years.
implement the curriculum moving forward for 4th quarter. Whether it's infused in science, if it's in science, I'll attach it to the science standard so you'll see. And if it's not, we may look at doing it through health education and PE, physical education. So we'll look into it and make a decision so you'll have it. This report is for 15-16 analysis, so this assessment's for last year. But moving forward, it is a concern that we need to address. And I will also look at the text and see if we selectively abandon a chapter that we need to actually teach and infuse. I'm sure there's going to be a cost associated with that. Because we're going to have to do an insert, I guess.
Mr. Umbach has a question.
And keep in mind, we have a full-fledged science adoption a year from now. This year's social, next year's science. So they will, there may be, you may want to think about band-aiding and then you go full-fledged next year with the science.
All right.
Ms. Gary,
Yes.
just through the chair, because Mr. Davis has that up there. Mr. Davis, Is it possible to get, where we are not in compliance, that report that you have? Is it possible that that is, I don't know, do the school board have it, or do they just have that sheet that says
That,
you're in
if
there?
that document, I think if you scroll down on that document, it will be posted areas that we need to improve.
So that's posted on the,
It will be, yes
on-
ma'am.
thank you.
And now that will be,
It's
serious
not
work.
misspoken.
Oh, well, I have no problems providing.
It's from the state that it's not for the public.
She's asking just for the summary report, and the
Yes.
item's not in compliance, that is posted, it's the full document that is not.
And that's, Ms. Piva, that's because of, last year there was a legislative change, if I may, Madam Chair. There was a legislative change that safety and security measures, especially
Oh, I
around
understand.
students,
Okay.
are not public.
No, I was more interested in other things. I wasn't, I figured you'd be adjusting that because that isn't public, correct.
Any more discussion on this item before we move forward?
Just one more quick
Go
thing,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Alright.
It used to be that it was an elective in junior high that was required, so it was a separate course altogether. It was like health and, I forget.
Life management.
Life management,
Life
that's what it was.
management.
Is that an option that maybe we could,
They got rid of that.
I think
It's
that,
elective, it's
that
not-
course
what was a
is,
required elective?
yeah, it's no longer,
No
I mean,
longer.
health is required.
Yeah.
And we can insert, I believe that it's infused in health. I mean, well, I know from my existing county, coming from, it's infused in health education.
Seems like that's where.
It should be.
That's not an option, though.
I think it's in our personal fitness class
Yeah.
that's taught through our
I
PE
believe,
teachers.
yep, I believe it is.
Online
I'll
in
find out. where
ninth
it-
grade.
No.
Some do it,
See,
and
I'm
very
not
few do
comfortable.
it
They-
at
PE
school
doesn't,
anymore.
yeah.
I'm still learning.
They
Keystone
don't-
They do it virtually, because it's one of those classes they can virtually do it and take care of their retro credit at the same time.
I
And
guess,
it's more interesting to do it that way for some reason.
Student being able to take a virtual
But yes, back in the day, everybody did, and a lot of kids still do. I'm not saying there isn't physical classes, there are, but
Not PE, not just regular PE, but the required,
Yes, ma'am.
state required
the
personal
personal
fitness
fitness
class.
class, yes ma'am.
Mhm.
I'll get that information soon.
I'm just concerned with us doing it on an online basis. I don't think that's.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's also a ninth grade course.
Yeah, but I'm
That's
talking
way
about the
late.
junior high, because right now, what you're adopting, what I read, is that the science teachers are gonna teach this in junior high, and there'll be an online element for these kids in junior high, correct?
From a curriculum, yes, ma'am.
See, and that's what I'm not comfortable with. I would rather
I
a
think it's
certified
a great idea.
person,
I like
a
that.
certified person who's teaching it, kind of like how we had it. That's,
Actually in class.
But now our virtual teachers are certified teachers.
Right.
absolutely, but I mean, if we're putting an online course on for these kids, are they certified in teaching that specific
Yeah,
topic?
and I think it's just, you have to be certified.
In
I'm
that
not- yeah, I'm
field,
not
in
certain
that
if it's in,
topic.
Yeah,
these
these
Not
are
just
are science
certified.
teachers. But I think the curriculum is just a virtual curriculum that they can go through versus having a document like, a printed document for them. I think it's just a curriculum they'll be able to work one-on-one individually or holistically in the classroom. I'll find out more.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Alright, the next one is the personnel consent agenda item with all the transactions and also the new job descriptions for the ones that I am proposing. This just talks about any individuals that have administrative actions or have, that will be moved, or individuals that have been terminated or resigned or retired.
Now generally, that's where we have job descriptions, right?
Yes, ma'am, if you keep flipping, there should be, or keep moving, there should be some.
okay, on the appointments,
Okay.
there's Thomas Scott, assistant principal, effective 7/25/16.
Right.
Why is that coming to us now? This is the biggest pet
Because-
peeve of mine.
Right. Because all of the paperwork, I think in his case, his social security card wasn't on file, so the past process has always been, until every piece of paper is in, it didn't come to the board. We've instituted after the last board meeting, you don't get paid if you don't turn in your paperwork. So.
So we won't be seeing this again then?
No, but you might get some calls about people who are upset about the fact that they're not getting their paycheck for not turning in their paperwork. That's the only way you can hold it over somebody
I mean,
to,
I
in
can
fact,
see a
turn
month
it
or
in.
two. I think, maybe even 3 months, but when we're seeing 6 months or, 8 months, and it's coming to us
Yes,
after
yes, ma'am.
that to me is,
Well, I think that'll take care of it.
that's just sloppy. It should not be. It should be coming to us in a timely manner.
I agree.
And that was a 11-month appointment?
Yes.
Yes, it is assistant principal.
Yes.
Any questions about job descriptions or briefings or placements?
This is a learning curve for us, everything is different. And I feel like I'm halfway there, but by July 1, maybe we get a complete organization chart
You
so I
will.
can see
You will.
what the heck.
If, once approved at the board meeting, you'll get an updated org chart.
One of my concerns when we were talking was the fact that as you're adding these positions and creating new positions, my gut reaction was, wait, I don't want to go top heavy again. I don't want to go through this whole reorganization and then find that we're paying much, much more money in situations that didn't feel as clear. It was sort of as clear as mud. And I feel, and I pretty much have looked at it and said, I think that, I feel pretty confident that it's not going to be in the long run. And as you go through some of these reorganization things with it, like the administrative I just passed it, shoot.
Administrator on assignment.
On assignment, that sort of thing, is going to start
Yeah.
realigning some of these positions
Well, I
as
realize
well.
over the
So
next 6 months, there's
there's
gonna
gonna be a lot of change.
And so, where I'm coming from is, I have faith in the new superintendent, he's got a game plan. I know he works day and night, I don't know when he sleeps, but I know he's got a game plan, and as much as I can, I want to be supportive,
Yes,
to give you a chance, because then I'm gonna hold you accountable
that's
to
right.
get us back
That's
up.
it.
I agree. And as I said to each of you in this conversation, I'm committed. I will, make certain that everybody that's in this reorg phase 1 is a first-round draft pick and has ability and skill set to elevate the experiences within this county. I'm committed to that. And I agree, if we get through this first phase, it'll be much different in phase 2 of it. But you'll see a team that will continue to grow and work with current existing staff and new staff in order to move forward within this organization. I'm committed to it. Okay, any questions?
So there are 3 new staff positions that are here with designations. The chief of staff, the assistant superintendent of climate and culture, and the coordinator of strategic planning and community partnership.
If you
Which-
turn to the next page, the assistant
Mhm.
superintendent of operations is
Right.
just student services, what
Right.
employees in.
Which of, and media partnerships, coordinator of communication, how do, and when you were describing it earlier, having attended the session on how to deal with bad emails or press or whatever, it was fascinating. And I think I understand where you're going with this, that we'll have someone, in essence, totally responsible sort of for putting the swing out there first about this is what we're doing, we're not going to react, we're going to proact, okay? And here's my question, which of these, is it the coordinator of communications and media partnerships? Or is it the coordinator of strategic planning and community partnership? I'm getting confused with those two. And in fact, it sort of overlaps with climate and culture as well.
Yeah, so the communications in media partnerships, that's all about building relationships with all of our media outlets and really getting to a point where we give them a water hose of information
Bingo.
in as
Yes,
much as we
that was-
can in order to inundate them with positive
Yes.
continued body of work. And
And if there happens to be a negative, getting the jump on the negative and being able to drive
be able to problem
that
solve it. And I mean,
information.
that's a big body of work within itself. I mean, you gotta think this is a one-person division that's trying to help keep all the plates spinning from a media perspective in every school and try to help them with whether it be websites, whether it be social media, whether it be Twitter, whatever it is. And then at the same time, hey, I got a problem here I gotta address. Well, I wanna do this media release. Well, I wanna do this for a press conference, and I wanna highlight X, Y, and Z.
And
It
who's the
becomes so
person
massive.
who's the person that's responsible for, who is the person who turns on the spigot or off the spigot?
This person right here would be the coordinator of communication media partnerships that would drive that work,
Got it.
without a doubt.
Okay.
And then the strategic partnerships, the community partnerships is how do we actively engage community, and whether it be business organizations and community members in order to leverage whether it be supports for our schools, whether it be through in-kind funding, or whether it be to help our programmatic approaches in order to ignite and bring everyone in a strategic manner versus every school just going out and do X, Y, and Z. This person will make certain that if we get in-kind money at the district level, that we are strategic with making sure that all that in-kind money is identified. So if I need to go have an event for teachers through HR, I know that if a certain partner has already given me $20,000 for a certain initiative, that I don't circle back and if communications needs another rally and needs money, we don't go back to that same person and ask for more money when we just ask for in-kind money to alleviate general revenue dollars. So.
Thank you.
And that person will also look at the family and community engagement process, which we need to create.
I'm just grateful you're only asking for 200 and something thousand. I thought it was gonna be like
I did too.
600,000.
Big baby.
That's me.
I'm
So
glad.
she does for 8-point being.
Okay, we're not here to discuss that.
I appointed you.
Did you have a question?
Just a suggestion, I'd really like to see this person work closely and be very actively engaged with our Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Development Committee, attend those luncheons, build those relationships.
That's how it always was. When Darlene was our PR person, she was on the, a member of the chamber and attended all of their business and education meetings. She attended the Clay Education Foundation meetings. She was their executive director. It's changed a bit, but she was always, and this was when I first got on the board, they're always there, you know, in the community, out there, getting our message out. So that would be a good thing.
Because I feel like that's, a lot of our message to Tallahassee would have a lot more teeth in it if we brought our Chamber of Commerce on board, if we brought our EDC on board.
I
But
agree.
this is why we need these things done in Tallahassee.
And this is how we evolve as an organization, which is the foundation of our growth, is education. I agree. And please just say, this is in no way, shape, or form disrespect to anyone within the current organization, because everybody in this organization in this room works hard. They really do. So this is just part of me as a leader, understanding and providing opportunity to individuals who may potentially understand my speed, my accountability, my way of work. All right, the next one is disapproval of advertising amendments for Justin School Board Policy 406 and 407. This is from the Department of Education and Health Services, where we now have to add language for foster care and homeless. That now must be separate. We've always had a number of the documents is all from the lease from the Department of Health and Human Resources, always been about homeless, but then this transition to separate the body of homeless and foster care. And the recommended change policy is linked behind, which really ultimately goes in and talks about, if a student is homeless, that we continue to protect their rights to stay at their current school, that we continue to make sure that we help them in any type of legal guardianship they may need, to make sure that we have a foster a safe environment, and that we continue to offer them the same avenues and opportunities that any kid that may have. And also, if need be, ultimately, we may need to get to a point where we may have to offer transportation to these individuals as well. So that's all this language says. And it just separates the same language for homeless and foster. Yep.
Yes.
Through the chair, Mr. Davis, are we going to provide transportation for these children?
Through here it says that if transportation is needed, then transportation will definitely be considered. Transportation will be provided by applying for the same transportation eligibility requirements that are currently in place as a district. And I'll have to work through Mr. Merrill to make certain that our policy is open and continue to be open to students with homeless education and also foster care.
Because we don't do a good job at this. We have a great reputation of not allowing them to stay in their home school and not providing transportation. So I will, that is also going to be in the backup, so I can have a look at it before the school board meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we're committed. I mean, we don't have a choice. This is policy.
Yes, sir.
And we should be
I
doing
know
right by
that.
kids. So if there's any.
Our project reach people, usually when they have requested this, they've been denied
Yes, ma'am.
transportation
Well,
in the past.
in moving forward, if you feel that there's a red flag somewhere, that I need to be aware of, let me know, and we'll look at that on an individual basis and make that decision in the best interest of our learners.
I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Any questions? Okay, we go to the next one, which is approval of the adoption process for social studies textbooks. This is so that the state statute requires we have 30-day advertising. So this is approving advertising in our clay today for the social studies adoption cycle. This will allow us to, the public who wants to speak to this item to come to the board in February. We have an advertisement that is located and attached to this item as well that gives them explicit direction of what their, what our legal public notice will be and their ability to come speak to it. We are an economic impact of $1.6 million over the next period of 5 years. Not saying that we will spend all of that because I'm pushing staff to really look at what series needs to be adopted. And if it doesn't need to be adopted through in certain grade bands, then we will not. That allows us to leverage more money to really look at our reading series, or math series, or our science series that may need to be adjusted internally. But this is just where we just make sure that stakeholders have an active voice, and we're following our legal obligation to allow them to either to sustain or object or to have conversations about it. Teachers will be actively involved in this process, so will community members in the adoption process moving forward.
Is there, the district advisory committee, have they been made aware of this?
We will make them aware, I think it's tomorrow night.
I'm not sure when they meet next.
I think
Is it
it's tomorrow night. We will make sure they're apprised of this notice going out. Okay. The next one is a K-12 academic support, student services through student travel. We have 3 schools that will be traveling. The first one will be Middleburg High School going to Florida State University, where their band will be able to perform from a number of colleges through Georgia, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, and in order to display their abilities and skill set for potential recruiting. Another one is Oakland Senior High School will be taking their Future Farmers of America cohort to, I may say this wrong, Camp Chowinhaw. There we go. So, what is it called again?
Chowinhaw.
Okay. Bear with me, I'll
You were
learn
never a
the
Girl
common language.
Scout, I'll bet.
I've never been to Camp C. So they'll go and be able to team build, problem solve, look at strategy, and for Oakland Senior High School. And the last one will be Ridgeview High School. The JRTC will be able to go to South Carolina and compete in a national competition, which is awesome for them. So.
This is another of my pet peeves, when
Yes, ma'am.
student travel comes to us after
Yep.
the fact. There's no
Yep.
excuse unless they've won a competition and now
Right.
they're going forward.
Yep.
But the band didn't know that they were gonna go on a field
I-
trip?
Yes, ma'am. I am putting in processes where, and this is the one that I had angst about. I asked the same questions. Why are we submitting Middleburg High School to go to FSU when it's already happened? So we will put in processes that will be 2 to 3 weeks in advance, so they have to identify it, and senior staff will have to approve it. And then I'm also going to be sent to the superintendent to approve as well. So I'll make sure that I'm on every form moving forward.
There will be cases at the end of the year where they will come. at the
Absolutely.
last
There'll
minute because they've
be
won
pressing
competitions
competitions
they need to go.
and, yes, I agree.
The stuff that they
Nope.
routinely know they're going
I
should
don't,
be coming to us
that's fair.
way in advance.
The thing that I get concerned about is when the kids are going in cars with a parent driving
Right.
kids in the cars, to make sure that, that we know who's driving, that there's insurance and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's scary when sometimes it comes to us after the fact.
Oh, I don't disagree.
I think the bigger thing would just be to certainly we're not involved in the day-to-day,
Right.
that's your job and your
Right.
purview, but to know that they're on a trip, so if something happens,
Absolutely.
we're not, wait a minute, we didn't have kids there,
Sure.
or
That's
whatever.
Yeah.
right.
And that will be same thing moving forward with any professional learning. So, so that we all know that we signed and it goes to the board as well, so we know who's where and what we're doing.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yep, I agree.
I have a quick question.
Moving forward, this will be.
What field trips have to come to the board versus not? out of state?
It's out of state.
Yes, out of
So
state.
this
So
isn't out
anything-
of state, but is it because the parents
What's
are
out of
driving?
county? Out of county
Out
comes
of
to
county.
us.
We
Camp
get
Joanne
them,
was
Out of
down
county
we
in
get,
comes
county.
to
we
us.
get them into state.
Yeah.
That's still in the county.
Camp
I think
Joanne
it's
was right there.
overnight.
Camp Joanne was
I think
right.
it's
Well-
overnight travel.
Okay. Yeah.
That's an overnight.
Overnight
Yeah.
travel? Okay.
Like the kids going to the crop maze or the zoo, that doesn't have to
No,
come to us
right.
because
I
it's
mean,
local and it's a day
Because there were a
trip.
couple that came,
Right.
so if it's out of.
It must be overnight.
No, I
Yeah.
believe it's overnight.
It must be
Right.
overnight, the
Right.
parents are driving the kids.
Because Camp Joanne was right there by Black
Yeah.
Lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get that.
That's
Question
weird.
two for internal measures.
Are they,
I guess they just want us to know where they are.
Yeah, usually it's internal, yeah, but it must be overnight. I'll find out what internal processes are, and you'll be apprised on them on the follow-up.
yeah.
All right, the next one is number 8, going to the next one is approve a consultant agreement with Pierce and Associates. To be very transparent, this was already problem-solved and negotiated prior to my arrival. So this is where we will bring in an individual who is a national consultant for professional learning for teachers ESC teachers and inclusion teachers. This individual wrote a book, I believe it's called Number Talks, and they will talk about best practices and strategies teaching number sense to students in need. And this will take place using Title II professional learning dollars. And it will be afforded to ESC inclusion teachers first, and then available seating will be opened up to any general education teachers that aspire to go. Moving forward, anybody that comes to our system will be reviewed and vetted and make sure it aligns to our strategic plan. Okay. Alright, next one is amendment budget for the month of November. This looks at standard forms of budget to look at any transactions by department to ensure that you have adequate funding in all of our funds. And it just shows you the support and details, what money is being moved to left or right within the organizations and with the departments. The next one talks about warrants. Stop me at any time. Warrants and vouchers. Looks at an inventory within our district to look at any purchases and transfers from school to school, and just gives you a financial summary of any operations as well. These are all monthly standard. You already know that. The next one is just again financial supports again. That we look for.
And I think we all know if we have questions that we can call Dr. Legutko.
Again, we go to, I think, business affairs with property. This is looking at transfer any AV materials or furniture equipment that's transferred within an organization that's purchased or bought. So it gives you an item analysis of the flow within the district of furniture equipment. The following one will talk about AV equipment as well. Any AV equipment that we've purchased throughout the district as well, and where that equipment will be placed within the organization. And the next one is the same items, but the next one is about software. Any software that we are purchasing internally to help us with our better processes, or from an organizational standpoint, or anything that we purchased to improve teaching and learning is also identified within this document.
Can I ask a quick
Yep.
question about
Yep.
the AV equipment?
Yep.
I mean, when we're going through that list, it's like certain things pop out, like Orange Park High School at 17,000, and I don't know which school it is. Lakeside, Lake Asbury, are those the new phone systems that we're going in? Or the AV equipment?
15.
I'm sorry.
I mean, there was one for 17,000, another for 10,000, another for 13,000. Just curious.
The classification in this district for audiovisual is the projection systems in the enhanced classroom. That does not fall under technology currently in this district. It's under support services.
So I have to check on here, see what those expenses
I'm just
were.
curious. I mean, I know we went
So-
through phone upgrades.
Right.
Who is in charge of the phone upgrades? Okay, so that, I don't know where the lines go. But I was curious as to what those were.
No, but we have a full project plan that I'd be happy to share with the board. It's all in Google form. I just add your names to it and go through all the documentation. It's actually quite a lot of documentation. It'll vary.
So let me.
very
now.
much.
Can I ask
He was having trouble
Yeah.
sleeping after
That's
this.
right.
Davis
Well, I'm
is
seeing the
bored
high schools.
anyway.
You know,
Yeah, right.
those are predominantly high
I got
schools,
jokes
so that's
today.
why I was curious.
So let me ask you this, so
No.
historically, is this the only document that you received, is just a school name and how much money we spent? Are there fun? So,
Turn Karen.
should, can we go granular and then maybe just give a one-sheeter of what the expenditures were on, so? if-
Absolutely,
that way
yes,
that-
and I
that
can
way
give a deeper dive on what those
Just
items are.
not
Cause I'd like to roll
Not
with 17 grand.
all supporting documentation with the bills and
Might take
who signed them, but
17,000
just
back.
a note, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think a nice
That's a
little
lot of
summary
money.
of
Look at
what
that.
it covers would be helpful.
See what I mean? That's,
Can I
well,
have a
that's what
copy of
I'm
that
looking at
also?
going.
Send it to the board.
Most of,
so
you know,
really-
like 1,000 here, 1,000 there, you get it.
Cause I'm
I
supposed to be
understand
having,
that, but-
the backup. I want, yeah.
Is that,
I'm gonna get
sorry,
it out now.
is that what is spent? Or is that, because what it says is beginning
Beginning
balance
balance,
and
yeah.
ending balance, and there's
Right.
not an
Is
expenditure.
that the,
Right.
is that the
Pretty much,
value
that's
of-
the value of our inventory at the
Thank you,
time.
That's what I
okay,
meant.
that's
The
Yeah.
value
right.
of what the
That's
smart
really,
money
and it's
is.
broken
Sorry.
down by
That's
category.
really
Not
good.
real
So,
money.
And that
if
would make
there-
sense.
if there
It's a
were-
high school, so you're
right,
gonna have
if there
more.
were any
Thank you.
purchases or movement of inventory, you would see that in the middle, in the body of the
That's,
report.
yeah.
At this point, this is what our inventory looks like at this point in
So
time.
it was like-
I don't want any documentation regarding that.
That's the value that they put.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Not real money.
No, I was looking at
No,
this going,
thank you,
wow, well, those
Betsy.
are big
And I
numbers,
want
but
it.
that's,
Yeah.
yes,
I
that
only
makes
want
sense.
real money.
Miss Renly, the chair, Miss Renly wants to give it to her.
Exactly.
That totally, that makes sense.
Only real money.
Only
Yeah, right,
real money, not something you've already spent.
All right, any other
Keep
questions
your
on this
hands
item?
Yep.
I'm moving you
Alright.
along, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, ma'am.
Vehicles,
The next
any
one,
questions?
yeah, same thing.
What's the value of the
Pretty good.
vehicle?
That's right.
No,
That's
no,
our
no.
current value.
And the next one is deletion of
Property.
any items that we have removed from inventory because it's not functional within our organization. And the next one is pre-qualification contractors. Any contractors that want to be vendors in our organization have to be listed.
Mr. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
through the chair, please, what happens to our
I have no money.
inventory, even the cars, what happens to the, do we resell them, like, what happens to stuff we get rid of? Do we have I know there's a big warehouse full of
They go-
desks and
They
chairs.
go on,
Weren't they
we sell
selling
them on
them for a
Gov
while?
deals.
Yeah.
They have a sale.
Didn't we have a school bus for sale?
Yes.
We sell them on Gov deals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do-
Robert
on
Johnson,
Gov
they
deals.
advertise them on Gov deals
Right.
and they come in and pick them up. I
Do
mean,
we
that Stu
have-
does a pretty good job.
Do we have
Yeah.
laptops?
Yeah, I know he's got computers over there, probably got laptops.
Can
as
we
well.
start, and I hate to say this, can we start, I guess, holding our laptops and then have a big community sell, a big push to our community and our parents? And try to sell them at a certain amount where we can get in the hands of our parents to better help them at home?
And take a look at the regulations as far as disposing of school property.
Senator says.
He's got the jerks, man.
When a laptop comes into property, the first thing we do is reassess it, can it be repurposed
Sure.
back out into the
Right,
district?
right.
When we deem that it is just not functioning, then we look to, or out of date, can't be supported by the manufacturer, then we'll look at things, you also have to light the hard drive, and in some
Sure.
cases, I think the current practice is to remove the hard drive. You can't put the operating system on there because we pay for the operating system. So by
Right.
the time you make it available to the public, they may have to purchase a hard drive and purchase the operating system. So
Right. Well, I
At that
mean,
point,
but if we're selling but if we're, I'm gonna push a little bit, cause we sell a computer at, I'm just giving you $50, no one can go buy a computer for $50. I'm just giving an example. So then you go pay $79 for the operating system,
And I don't
and
think
then we're ready to go. I mean, I'm just giving an example. So I'm just trying to be proactive of how I can get a computer in a parent's hands that may not have the $1,000 or $500. So just something you can just think on the side.
I think that could be an opportunity for our business and faith-based partners to maybe partner with us to provide, so if we provided the empty hardware, somebody outside of us provided, Five Star could go put an operating system on there and pay for the license, and that's under their, maybe it's a charitable write-off for them, where it's not for us or something.
Alright, sorry, I didn't mean to get off track. of that.
Thank you.
So the next one is pre-qualification for contractors. Any contractors that want to become and start bidding on any of our jobs, they has to come to the board for acknowledgement. Last one is, the next one is looking at our specifications for schematic plans for Orange Park Junior High parking lot. We are adding poles for visibility and accessibility to light, to illuminate the parking lot, and we are moving to LED lights.
Good, good.
Similar to what we got at Orange Park High. There's been a drastic difference since we installed the LED lights, as well as Lakeside Elementary School's got LED lights in that one turnaround.
And just as a side note, Mr. Davis, we had
Are
we
you
had
thinking
a
of
former,
the Oakleaf parent?
no, at Orange Park, there was a parent, that ended up suing the district because they stepped off a curb for lack of lighting. And that's what
That's
Here in
prompted.
county, here we go.
Yeah.
This- Yeah, but
Yeah.
It's a
she
current
did that,
active
she sued
case.
6 months after we upgraded
Right.
it, so it was,
Right.
I'm not sure
It is
where.
an active
That was
case,
where
so
it
this
is
is
in
Oh.
the
so we
process.
shall not speak.
Sorry. I thought it was.
Really,
No, it
not
hasn't
tell
been
your
settled
teachers
yet.
to go to that area and fall.
If it was a
Okay.
teacher, they wouldn't have sued.
I should-
They would
Yeah.
probably
They would've gone
coughed up
across the street.
their own
Alright,
money to
so,
take care of it.
Alright, so the next one is,
I assure you.
the fire alarm update through Doctor's Inlet Elementary. We're just replacing the current fire alarm to make sure it's up to standard. Alright,
So is everybody happy with the format of this?
And we can still pull items, correct,
Yes.
Madam Chair?
I think something we have to discuss before we go further. Anybody have questions on the Two Creeks parcel? Is that something that's at the very bottom under
yeah, that's on discussion.
discussion agenda? That, we met with Sam Garrison.
Oh, are we all the way down there already?
Yeah, he went through all the
Oh, okay.
consent.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's superintendent update. I think we've heard enough from him.
Sorry.
Oh, you know
Human
what?
resources is confidential, so we're not gonna discuss that.
There's one more that you're
The
not
health
seeing.
insurance.
Uh-oh.
Premium
Oh.
policy, again, it wasn't approved, so if you'll refresh, you should
Ooh.
get it now.
So the,
Just click on it for us.
so yeah, this was our insurance premium when the negotiation process,
That was Sandy's phone.
yeah, the negotiation process, when we
Yeah.
elected to go to United Healthcare, the district negotiated 1 month of the funding and premium price to come back to the district. This brings it to $1.2 million from United Healthcare. You add we will also add $276,000 from Florida Blue as well, which takes us to around 1.4, I think 97, $1.4 million. Can't do this read through.
What item is this? I'm looking.
It's D2,
And I
down at the very bottom.
talked to individually about what I'd like to do with 400,000 of the $1.4 million.
So that's from the insurance side, from insurance committee, we actually meet tomorrow, I believe. But that's non-recurring, that was non-recurring. United Healthcare would not agree to make that recurring, although
Annually.
somebody was pushing them to. But anyway, that was part of what, when the insurance committee brought the recommendation to the board, this was part of the kind of trip over to go with United Healthcare was this one-time premium holiday. It's truly not, I mean, we asked a ton of questions on, is this gonna come back at the end of the year? Is this coming back on renewal? Are you going to try to recoup these costs at some point from our district? And they said no. Now, they obviously, they can say that. If you'll remember, Florida Blue did something like this, then came back and raised the rates, and they lost the business the next year. So I think that they've seen that we don't play around with that.
So does this mean that the rebate, the premium free will be January? That's what the
Yes,
board's,
yes.
So the board.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So that will
It's
be
January
for,
13th and January
yeah.
31st.
So
payment.
teachers will be able to, they will have to pay their insurance for that month.
So family coverage, literally, will be
Say-
covered.
It
Yes.
covers that's like a $200 to
For the-
$400 increase in pay for teachers right there.
Well,
For that
that's-
month.
That's a lot more.
Yeah, it could be.
A lot
Depends
more
on
for the
size of your
family.
Yeah.
That could be $500 to $600.
Well,
It was a
$1200.
big selling point when, Ms. Condon would tell you, because, premium-free month is, and I'm glad it's January. It'd be very good for our employees right across, but especially our family with children employees, because they're gonna
Absolutely.
suffer.
Dr. Legaco?
Yes, I wanted to share with the board that this is, the numbers that are represented here are truly estimated numbers until the actual premium holiday calculation is completed, but we are pretty close to those numbers. And what I wanted to share with the board is that as you look at the attachments, the idea is to ensure that no employee in the month of January or their families will experience a deduction from the insurance. So in order for us to provide that opportunity for every employee, we had to add some more dollars to the entire premium submission. So what that means is, of course, you've got employees who do contribution, that they will contribute at least $500,000, or actually above $500,000 towards their family coverage. Or even single coverage, we actually pay an additional whatever that may be. So in order for every employee not to experience any kind of payment deduction for the month of January, we had to contribute the difference. So that's why if you look at, you'll see in the payment, it's about, our total compensation to the United Health is about 1.5, that's the board's contribution. The employee contribution is about a 580, and it's on the other side of the sheet, you're not seeing that, but if you go down further, you will see those calculations. I just wanted to share that with you, as well as Mr. Davis mentioned that we did take the medical loss ratio from Blue Cross and Blue Shield and added that to the, as part of the credit. Because that money, that rebate can only be used towards future premiums as well, or rebated back to the employees who participated in the health insurance. Now, I do want to be clear that even though the employee may not experience a deduction from health insurance, if they've got the additional insurance such as vision,
Right.
dental,
Good
those
point.
types of things, they will still experience that
Right.
deduction. But that, the summary there that provides you with the single coverage, the employee spouse, all of the different classifications of the type of deductions, that's the amount that the employee will experience as a savings in the month of January. As, with, of course, the board accepting the premium holiday to be January, and then, of course, the next step with Mr. Anderson speaking with you about the dollars.
Ms. Bobby, did you want to add something?
Through the chair to Dr. Legecko, so the district or the school board is throwing in $84,316.
We've got to add more, the 84,000, yes,
Okay.
plus the 1.5.
Where would you get that from? Which line item would you get that $84,316?
Well, it's a deduction from the credit of the overall credit that we would pay the health insurance, because we budget the line item for health insurance. We are committed in paying, so that's where that would come from, the
Okay.
health insurance.
Any other questions on
Not my
that?
salary, it'd be Diane's.
All right.
Yeah, the last one is, well, are we good with the Two Creeks parcel in Oak Leaf area? This is the board agenda item that talks about releasing that,
And we're
that parcel.
We're
So-
talking about releasing it?
Well,
Much to the
no.
chagrin.
They have explained, Mr. Merrill,
I
could you
know
go
that-
through and explain
I
to
know
us
the Two
again?
Creeks parcel. I know that Dries wants to build more homes on it.
And there's a
I've gotten
lawsuit.
information from other people, members of the Two
Sure.
Creeks community as to what they want to do and not to do. And I know that there's been question about, well, we're close to times. And we could also say, include the control.
We don't have to release it.
We do not have to release it, so this is
Absolutely
a
not.
termination
one of
of
our-
obligation.
One of our differences with this site than school site B, which is over in Eagle Landing, is that we don't actually own this piece of property.
No,
And it
Dries
was
owns
not designated to us. Dries is trying to actually buy it. It was foreclosed, and then a bank, and then when it foreclosed, a bank owned the property as in the foreclosure process, and Dries wants to buy it from that bank, but they need the zoning changed. It's designated as a school
Right.
site, and so they need the zoning change to build the
Mhm.
homes.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that
the attorney.
But keep in mind, Dries bought this property knowing that that was a designated future school site.
Correct,
In the master
correct.
plan for the county,
That's correct.
that, so we
Mhm.
do not have to release this property at all. They can then take us to court and sue us, and if the court rules that way, then we'd have to follow that.
So let me ask you this, does this even need to go to the board, or can we make that decision here?
It's up to you, the Planning and Zoning Commission would like some indication on how the board feels about this, whether they wanna give it up or they wanna fight for it.
We can't take action at a workshop.
Correct.
No, and we're not, we're just discussing it, but would
And
you
then-
explain it again, Mr. Merrill?
The Planning and Zoning Commission had this before them a couple months ago. They realized that we're getting a new board, a new superintendent, and they delayed it, their consideration of it until January. So that we give the new board time to discuss it, see what direction you wanted to go. It is coming up to the Planning and Zoning Board the first Tuesday in January. I think it's going to BCC later in January. Whether the BCC wants to, basically it's their ordinance that has the Brandon Field Master Plan, and the caveat in there says school sites would be given up with with the concurrence of the school board. And so, Planning and Zoning would like an indication from the board which way you guys would like to go, and they will incorporate that into the recommendation of the BCC. The BCC doesn't have to follow the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board, it's just a recommendation. And I think, I wasn't in your executive session, but I think the feeling is if we vote not to give it up, that we're probably gonna go to court, is unlawful taking of the land, since it can't be used for anything else, and then that'll go through the court system.
Right. So,
Madam Chair,
yes,
I think this is my new neighborhood, because that's where our office is. What is the impact on, because this is by the Times area, right?
It's just north of Times, on the
Well,
right-hand side of Times Boulevard.
There are four new, they're clearing the trees, 4 new developments going on Old Jennings Road itself. One over there, and one Long Bay, okay, so one actually turns the corner. Do we know how many houses are going into those developments on Old Jennings?
On Old Jennings, there's a 250 unit apartment complex going in there at Old Jennings, and I don't want to say Brandon Field, it's Old Jennings.
Okay, so that must be the one on the corner that's not cleared yet.
That's right, there's one at Old Jennings
Where
and
the-
Times that is an assisted living facility.
Right.
That's
Right.
further down.
Right before you go into Times, there's an assisted living facility going in there. And then I know there's a subdivision called Linda Lakes, which is on the corner of Old Jennings and Long Bay. I haven't been out there recently, but you say if they're starting to push trees down over there.
Well, they're building, they've got one house up.
Oh, have
They've got one house because they're using my parking lot as their turnaround. So that's, and there's another, there's another one further up that they're clearing trees on, and there's also one on the left. So immediately,
where
there's
you are?
4 developments, so somewhere you guys gotta have to figure out how many houses that is and how many kids in the future, because you might very well need a school there, but I think you need that information. I don't know what they are, I just know they're clearing the trees.
I know they cleared trees near Rideout, and they were just harvesting the trees, and nothing ever went up
And it
there.
could
So I have
be.
to check,
It could be.
check into that.
Let me ask something. Can I talk?
yes,
All right, it's got Subject School and it's got the property there, and then Times Boulevard, and then scroll it down a little bit, it looks like Times Elementary on the
Yeah,
right.
you gotta rotate that to the right to get true north on there.
Yeah, I'm trying to see,
you wanted to zoom out?
No, I want to show where these developments are going, because they have it as nothing.
this is really close
Can
to
you zoom
Times.
zoom in a little more?
You're,
I want you to go up.
Renly, you're
I see
further
Trail
down.
Ridge, yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Old Jennings is
You're
on the bottom.
That's on, this has got east facing up, so it's gonna have to be rotated to the right 90
Yeah, well, you had
degrees.
it up the first.
Well, this is just
Cursor
north
up a little
of Trail Ridge, where Trail Ridge intersects
It's
Times.
just south of Trail Ridge.
South.
Right.
Okay, well, north of Trail
No,
Ridge, I'm
it's
sorry.
north.
Yeah, no, I said, yeah.
I knew, I
Yeah.
know Source
She
is south.
knows.
If you go,
I delivered new couple packets. I
yeah,
know
I'm going
that.
down, go back
The other
up
way.
again.
Up.
Go
Go the
back,
other way.
go the opposite way.
Yeah, go the opposite.
There you go, keep going,
Keep
keep
going.
going.
Keep going.
Mhm.
There's the
More.
play chart, it's right at the
Keep going
charter
further if
school.
you can. No, straight up. There you go. Oops.
Yeah,
That's
no,
where I was-
go up.
You believe that this is a, what sounds like all under development, could be a 5 to 7 year build?
Yes, sir.
Could certainly impact us.
Here, scroll back.
And
Let's
times
do
it
it,
already
scroll
80%.
back. Oh, I wanna see the north part again.
I mean, we stand our ground.
Are there's a charter or school?
That's my feeling. I don't think we should ever give a property that's
Again,
designated
it's not,
to a school district.
we don't own it, it was just designated in the Brandfield
So we
Master
would
Plan
have
as
to
a
buy
future
it.
school site.
And we'd have to then negotiate,
My name's
you know,
Carol.
No, I was gonna
at
say,
fair market value on, you know, it's
You're right
underdeveloped,
there.
so I don't know what
you're
the,
right there.
we had talked about that.
Correct.
So
Okay.
there would be a cost to
And
us certainly,
The
but
building that you're talking about
With
is
the growth
coming
that's
in
gonna
here
go on,
and
what's
over
your
here,
opinion?
because I've seen
Well,
the same.
hold on, because there's
construction.
multiple conversations going on, so because
There you
I'd
go.
like to hear
It's coming up.
what you,
This is better.
Mr. Merrill, I was asking what your opinion was on this.
If the BCC goes along with the Brandfield Master Plan and develops residential where it's supposed to be residential, develops commercial where it's supposed to be commercial, we could probably do, not have to use this piece of material or property,
Right.
but we'd be taking kids probably to Ridgeview and to Coppergate that live up in this area here.
So we'd be doing some,
You would have to be doing,
Substantial
if the
rezoning.
BCC waffles, and the planning and zoning has already a little bit where they've had commercial, you know, as a master plan community where there's supposed to be a commercial section. They've done away with that and put residential in there. If they continue doing with that, you may find yourself.
Well, look what happened in Oak Leaf.
yeah, we have a
mean,
history of
They
them doing
did that
that.
in Oak
They
Leaf.
did it at Oakley.
or
Now,
even
we've
those
got the
apartment
Eagle
complexes.
Landing property, but probably as big as that area is, if we ever get that school built, we probably can't come down in here to pick up these kids and go up to Eagle Landing, or how far? Oh,
And
That would
complicating,
be, that'd be an option. You have to take a look at that.
and further complicating that issue, Ms. Cornegie, you may remember the exact number, but there's the percentage our entire district has to have of capacity before we can build a new school.
absolutely.
And we are
Yeah,
not
I think it's
there.
at 90, is it?
I think it's 90, I haven't been
Yeah.
able to
Because
put
the-
DOE
Do you
down,
know
a lot
where we
has to do
are?
The
with
state will
development
tell
in
us
the
to take
area.
those Eagle Landing kids and bus them to
Yeah, we have a
Swindon,
Mr.
Tennessee.
printout.
Boland, did you have something you wanted to add?
That's what they
So
would
we
do.
range
I have a
anywhere
question
from
for you, Mr. Mayor.
100% to 75, 80%.
Okay.
Also, this would be the area I think most impacted by the open borders that we're gonna have in the coming school year, this part of our county.
Up in the Oakley area.
Once,
Yeah.
and once the highway goes in.
So my question would be, I know you've talked about having some funds set aside capital-wise for future use. Would it be an option to go ahead and purchase this and avoid a lawsuit?
That's always an option. We've got impact fees. We've got roughly $14 million in impact fees that have to be spent on growth. They can't be spent on maintenance or repairs. And this I think would qualify for using impact fees if you wanted to
And
spend.
we can move
That's the
forward
money
with
to
that.
build a
and-
school.
Right.
To respectfully.
Yes.
Eagle
That's
Landing
A,
Elementary
it's a
School.
good question. B, I don't recommend using impact funds because we have got to build something in Oakley.
You got it, you can't,
I'm just.
And we
We
would
can't
still
touch
be
that.
in a lawsuit. I don't know if you remember Mr. Garrison when he spoke to us, but, and any of you can actually call him and ask him, but he had explained to us that even if we did want to purchase it, it doesn't remove this part of us not releasing the property. So we would still have to deal with
I
that
wasn't involved
aspect
with
of
that.
it.
Do we have a property value of,
The only thing I've got close to is with the charter school, Clay Charter Academy. It was about 30 acres there, and
It's
it
the
cost
same
them
property.
1.5 million.
They just
So we're
postponed
talking
it
about
till very
$50,000 an acre roughly in that area. This is
how
a
many
better,
acres is this parcel?
20, a little over 22.
You said how much per acre? 50,000?
50,000, that was 50,000 for Clay Charter Academy. That was wooded, that's got a lot of wetlands. This is a nice piece of property, so it may go for more than that.
Bless you.
I'll have to call him and ask.
I'm really getting confused.
It is confusing.
But you're getting 3 developments there.
Right,
There
and
are
one of
3
these
developments going up there.
documents, and I can't remember where I just saw it, and I'm looking for it. It said that there was an additional piece of property that we had for school
It's
A
part of,
mile and a half north, is that the?
That's Eagle
bulk
Landing.
landing?
That's
Oh,
why, that's
the-
school
okay,
site
thank you.
Y,
Yeah.
which is on
Got
Complete
it.
Plantation
That was in the
Boulevard.
original, we've got to do that.
All right.
any further questions on this? or
Well,
are
I'm
we
just
all
totally
equally
confused on this now. If we release it, then we're out of the picture
Yeah, if you
completely.
release it, then
And
there's
if
no
we don't
potential
release
growth.
it, you're saying we're gonna get
You're
sued.
gonna bust kids a long way.
Again, that's what you guys
Yeah.
discussed in your
I would
executive session.
suggest call Mr.
There's a
Garrison again
lawsuit.
and have him explain it if you're unclear on it. But that's what I remember
Well, we
him
can't make a
saying.
decision in this workshop anyway,
No,
but I
but
think
you
we
can
all got
certainly-
homework to
Can
do
I ask
on
one
that.
other question? Where are the high tension wires in that neighborhood?
They're on
Because I
the,
know, is it that straight line that goes down?
you're pretty close, they're on the,
'Cause
they're
they're-
on the
this-
west side of the street, west side of Times Square.
And the subject school site would be on the east side of
Right.
that.
Well, can we expect a recommendation from staff on this or not?
I can give you one if you want.
Yeah, we'll work collectively again.
You'll have
I'll
to
give you,
But
I'll
the,
give you
the
right.
planning and zoning would like something back from you before
Yeah,
they
I
meet
think,
in
I
January.
I think some of my questions when you go back with staff are, one, how close are we to capacity of being able to build on school site-wide? Two would be, if we were going to buy a piece of property, is this the right one? Because this one is fairly small as far as our school sites go. So, kind of where, and I know that's not in your 100-day plan, you didn't have a day for this assigned, but I think it's important to kind of have the overall discussion, and I know this agenda item is only on Two
Right.
Creeks, but it's really that overall big picture, if we're going to, kind of look at that whole
Right.
area.
How many acres is it?
22.
22, so that's,
We've got several elementary schools on
elementary
20
school
acres
size.
of land
Yeah,
and they
that's an
do
elementary
well.
size, yeah. And,
If we just had a crystal ball and could see what
well,
it's going to be.
and my
20,
concern is
30
with
years
all the
down
growth
road.
that's going on, and even if it's zoned residential, and instead of putting in, 10 houses, they put in an apartment complex, now we've got a lot more students, and that did happen out in Oakley, there's,
Right.
those condos and apartments that went up and then are overcrowding.
And keep in mind, in Oakley, not only do we have elementary overcrowding, but we're quickly on the tails of that junior high
That's right.
overcrowding.
Yeah.
The high school isn't as big of an issue, we know we have
Yeah.
capacity at Orange Park, even though
Right.
that's not what parents want.
But I'm thinking back, y'all help me on this, when that came up and they, the commissioners let them put houses there instead of commercial, were we ever contacted at all? Was there any communication with us
That
as to
was-
the impact on the school?
That was before my time, so I'd hate to say, but I know that the Arbor Mills area, I had talked to Holly Coyle, and she said that the staff was against that one, and they still changed that one too. It used to,
The
it was supposed
staff
to
from
be
where?
BCC staff was opposed to changing that office park, which
And
is
did
Arbor
they
Mills.
communicate with the school district so
That's
that we
before-
could give input?
Yes, they did. In fact, I saw a letter when Phil Hans was in Mike, or not
And did they
Mike,
tell
Jim
them,
Hans.
don't do it?
That was our recommendation.
And they did it anyway?
So I guess my question to add on to yours, when you talk with staff about this to give us a recommendation, what's the financial impact to the district if we choose to, weigh our options here?
What did
I'm not sure what the financial impact would be if they sued you and you lost. That'd be a Sam Garrison or Dan Sykes question. This is the developments that are there now, readily maybe, again, north is this way. Here's that,
Sorry, I can't see.
here's that 250 unit apartment complex that's going in. This is Linda Lakes. This is Old Jennings Road coming down through here. This is Brandon Field coming up there. There's a Wilford Preserve, about 485 homes going up in here.
There's another thing going on.
These are the only ones that have come to the DRC. So, again, here's Old Jennings. Here's Long Bay. This is Azalea Ridge down here, across from Middleburg High School.
And those kids would go to Middleburg Elementary, correct? Or
These kids here go to Times.
They go to
Okay.
Times.
Yeah,
A
you
lot
would
of
go
those
to
people go
Times.
to Times because is the policy not, try
Where's the
not to
parcel
cross
that we
Blanding
have?
with school buses? Is that one of the,
No, we can do that.
is that?
It was just, I'm not sure who redistricted it years ago, but
Got it.
I believe where it says, the parcel that's on School Y is to the left of Twin Creek, is that correct?
this is why right here.
All right.
This is Arbor Mills, this is, Forest Hammock.
Yep.
And could Y
And this is-
be a K8?
Could be.
How many acres is
In
Y?
front of the
Y's a little over 30 acres, but there's several acres of
Oh, wait a
wetlands on
minute,
there that we
what's
have to work.
why? That's not,
Right here is Y. Is Oakley Plantation Boulevard.
wait a
One
minute.
thing,
You're looking- I'm-
I thought it was down by Eagle
You're
Landing.
losing
We had
me.
something in Eagle Landing.
No,
We have a
Eagle
property over in
Landing is-
Eagle
this is
Landing.
Eagle Landing right here.
Yeah, but I thought, is that why?
Oh, this
It's
is Y
Eagle
here, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about, man?
I was trying to confuse you.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So this
Why
is gonna
is it
be
Eagle
250
Landing?
apartments?
Hey,
250
we wish we
uniform.
had it up where that other one.
Well, that's,
The houses
you
go
do,
there.
that's Plantation Oak.
Please.
I can
I'm
roll
sitting
that
here
place
thinking,
up.
I'm gonna be losing my
Hey,
mind.
Mr. Merrill, could you
This-
just step over a bit? You're blocking the camera with your still
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry.
We've got a big blue blob.
This is a new development that's going in Wilford
It's even
Preserve,
running. Is it still
about
running?
485 homes.
It should
Part
be.
of that is, here's Cheswick Oaks,
So
right here.
that's Argyle Elementary.
This is Argyle Elementary, yeah, I got that one right, yeah.
I just wanna make sure
This
you're
is-
straight.
This is Cheswick Oaks Avenue coming down here. There's plans to take Cheswick Oaks and connect it to Oakley Plantation Boulevard.
And then
And
all
that, when that
fill in.
happens, you'll probably see this
All that's
area
gonna fill in.
start.
You're gonna need a helicopter to come to work. You ain't driving on that road.
Get you over those hovercrafts.
I come the back road right now.
Wow.
No, this is
I
Miners
would-
Plantation, Two
I wouldn't
Creeks.
let go of this parcel of land.
Okay, so what
But
I-
what happened, where
Lots of
Arbor
schools
Mills or
under
whatever, Forest Hammock up there, they let them build houses there. We were cool because we had, Oak Leaf Village, and we had the junior high,
Plantation
the
Oaks.
high school, and then we had the Plantation Oaks, and then we knew that we had Eagle Landing property. We were in high cotton, and then they come in and put in those 800 homes, and
There's
it
800 here and
upset the
200 here,
apple cart.
over 200 there, so you got over 1,000 homes in there that weren't planned for.
And you're gonna
Just
have
show me
people
on the map
opposite
again where this
side
piece of
of
property
Uh-huh.
is.
Argyle
The
Forest
two
land
lanes.
for capacity.
Okay.
It's the blue star right here.
But Argyle Forest is going to be over, because they're getting 487 more homes over there.
Yeah, they're building out up there.
And that's gonna be 2-3 years down the road
Yeah,
before they do that.
yeah.
And you're
But
gonna
that
start
will
digging.
reseed Argyle, isn't it?
Yes.
That will
Yes.
keep Argyle.
And, you know, if
With
you
1,500
do give it
homes-
up, here's, that's hard to see it on here. This is, I believe, Ridgeview Elementary.
Right.
You've got Coppergate and right down in this area as well. Oh, here we go.
The south end.
And this
we
is
could see
Doctor's
that.
Inlet.
Yeah.
So could, if the BCC goes according to the Brandonfield Master Plan, could you do without it? Yeah, you probably could, but you'd be probably, and we talked about it today earlier with transportation, coming up here to Kindlewood and getting some of these folks and bringing them down to Coppergate, help Coppergate. So there's ways that you could do redistricting without that piece of property, as long as the BCC, holds to their Brandonfield master plan. The more they deviate from it and change commercial into residential, the more of a bind it's gonna put you in. And that's the crystal ball in the future.
So what we'll do is I will give the board a cost analysis for the property, and I know that it's not out there for sale, but we can do a cost analysis for everything that's sold in the last 3 years. We'll look at how close are we to building this based on where we are from utilization, based on growth. What is the property actually needed in reference, is there another set of property within that community that we could potentially purchase? Is it big enough, and do we currently have schools that are on a comparative size? And we'll look at what kind of financial impact for proactive ways to purchase, whether it be any different avenues for it. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You also might want to reach out to Mr. Garrison, since we had an executive session with him, and he explained the legal ramifications
Yeah.
of this
That
to
they-
us.
And I'll be prepared for the board.
All right, thank you.
All righty, well,
Is that it? Anything else?
that's it. I've only got one question to ask, but
Do we have any
All right.
10-minute sessions coming up that we're aware of?
anyway.
10 minutes.
10-minute speakers?
Speakers that we're aware of at this point?
Now bear in mind that we eliminate 10-minute speakers.
We're gonna get a lot of 3 minutes. Got it.
You gonna have some people saying, you gonna hear about their constitutional rights.
Whatever you picture you choose.
Oh, yeah, here we go again. Been there, done that.
Any
And I
presentation,
agree with you, 10 minutes is ridiculous.
any
I mean,
presentation
10
from the
three,
audience?
10 minutes. but we
That
don't
would be you,
catch
you're
it.
the audience.
Wait, you have one over here too?
No,
Oh, sorry.
You don't wanna talk?
No,
I'm oh, yeah.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm just shocked by, they're gonna put 250 apartments there, so I wouldn't like going up any property.
Are we gonna have agenda meetings like this before each
Yes,
month's
ma'am.
meeting? Could I ask that, well, I know we had another meeting before, but could we start it at 9 o'clock? Because
Yes,
like
ma'am.
I'm having this Rotary today.
Absolutely. We would originally
Rotary
have it at 9
Tuesday.
o'clock, but we had a special meeting and we can adjust whatever we need to be.
But that way I
So
could
we
get
would have
out
at 9
and
o'clock
get
and
Rotary.
we will have probably potentially be out by 11 o'clock every time. Yeah,
On
probably
this
earlier.
schedule, we actually moved up to Wednesday mornings.
Yep, okay, yeah, Wednesday mornings.
And
maybe.
Wednesday's better,
What
because we
time
have
Wednesday
mentoring
morning?
on Monday and.
Because my Rotary is
Yeah,
at 8
Tuesday.
o'clock on Wednesdays, so I would not be able to leave Keystone until 9. So I could be here
do
by
10?
9:40, yeah, I could do 10. Can we do 10?
Ashley, does that work with you?
That would work much better for me, 9 o'clock is good.
Okay.
All right, 10.
10 on a Wednesday.
She has elementary drop off.
And you'll have us out in time for lunch.
10 on Wednesday before a school board
Yeah.
meeting?
As long as it's not the
10 on every Wednesday? 10
So
on-
I have, there's a couple things for you to leave. I know you're ready to try and get out here and run. We gave you a projected schedule for upcoming events. So I guess the expulsion hearing we'll just host this way we did it, the way we've always done it for December, and then we can change it to wherever you want to change it during the day for moving forward. That's okay?
We have a meeting
We
the
have-
fourth Wednesday of
yeah.
every month at 11:30.
It's the fourth Wednesday of every
And
month.
so that'll conflict with us moving the board meetings to the first Thursday.
Who's moved the board meetings to first Thursday?
When would we be
Third Thursday.
meeting for
Third
the
Thursday.
agenda meeting?
I thought
Workshop, we're moving it
I
to
thought
the
you
first.
moved
That's
it.
first Thursday, correct?
You were moving it the
It's
first
Thursday.
Thursday. so you
December
did
is
that every
different.
night.
For
But we
January,
have-
what would it be?
For
We have-
January, it's going to be right
We did
now.
Tuesday.
For the January board meeting, it would be on Monday, December 19th,
Okay.
because that one is a different timeline because of the
So the
holidays.
regular month, so take us to
Regular,
February.
we initially had Tuesdays, but then we moved it on account of y'all's meetings and we tried to do Wednesdays,
Right,
so.
so is it the Wednesday before, that's what I'm asking?
Yes. Well, actually, if the meeting is on February the 2nd, the February one would be Wednesday, January 25th.
See, we have a set meeting the fourth Wednesday of every month
You guys
at
probably
11:30.
will attend too,
The
Republican Women.
It- That's
Yeah.
at
What time is
11:30.
that?
It's 11:30 at Continental.
So, and then if we did it afterwards, we're gonna mess up the pickup schedule
Yeah.
for you.
You just tell me what the best 2-hour
Well,
window is.
Tuesday would
so I
work
can be able
at
to
9
schedule it,
o'clock, but
whatever.
you said it's hard for you to get here at 9,
Well, I can make it work though.
once a month.
Tuesdays at 9?
Tuesdays at 9, because you don't have Rotary.
It's a Wednesday.
We would be out by 11:30, you promised.
Could we make it 9:30? Would that be
9:15
easier?
or 9:30 would be helpful.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
9:30, 9:30.
We'll cut him off.
That would
We'll
help
let him
you. 9:30, and we will leave by 11:30.
Okay.
Yes,
So we
sounds
got-
good.
So which is
9:30.
better, 9:30?
9:30.
So 9:30 on
See,
Tuesday.
Is this not teamwork?
And I'll email you.
And I think it's good to do it on the Tuesday, that way we've got a day to
Your word,
rehearse.
your big word, Miss.
Kumbaya.
Collaboration.
Collaboration.
Superintendent remarks?
Yes, ma'am, a couple things,
9:30.
I understand that's
Everybody will get a copy of that.
FICA,
Yeah, if you all will remember, I guess it was October, Matt Brockman came in and met with you all and decided to delay legislative priorities until after FSBA.
Right.
So at this point, as that timeline is closing in on us, we need to decide how you want to move forward with that. Remember, he had offered to come in and do a board workshop to gather your thoughts on how you wanted to proceed with the legislative session coming up in March. So are you ready to proceed with that? Do we want to schedule that workshop? And if so, what are your thoughts on when you would like to do that so that I can let Matt know? As we're thinking about legislative priorities, what I've handed you is something that we need to consider in terms of this next legislative session. If you'll remember, back in 13-14, we got an education appropriation for the challenge of $750,000. The following year, that was reduced to $350,000. And then last year, we did not make it a legislative priority, so we got 0 because we diverted our attentions to the academies. Here's the challenge that we're facing with Florida Youth Challenge. It has been a big expense to us the past several years that we've had to incur. Last year, we adjusted their staffing model at their request to go to contracted services through DES. That's the same organization that we've used for other contracted services like Dr. Copeland in the past. They are no longer going to serve as a flow-through. Their parent company has said that they won't service us any longer. So for next year, we no longer have them as a provider. We've looked at other providers. We're having a hard time finding anyone. We've used the Schultz Center in the past. We've used other organizations. We've even tried EFEC. They just don't operate as flow-throughs for staffing. And so if we go back to the original funding or the staffing model that we had in place for several years, it's over $600,000 in salaries that we would have to incur. Plus all of the other associated costs, the testing, and they also are looking to expand their program. So they're wanting to add some CTE positions. So what you see there, if we continue to provide or look for a provider, which right now I'm not encouraged that we're going to find one, then option one is a cost that we would have to look at for the district. And you'll see in option one, that cost for next year would be and this is an estimate, $494,000. Remember, they have always given us $250,000, so our projected cost would be $265,000 to cover the cost of flight deck. I am being the pessimist that I am with this topic. I'm thinking that we're more inclined to pick up the cost of option two, which would be about $323,000 for the district. So my question is, as you think about legislative priorities, do we want to, we have two options. One, we can pursue it as a legislative priority, try to get an appropriation. Either way, we've got to engage. We have two options. We can either not support the program any longer, which I think would be sad for these students who are benefiting from the program, but I don't know that we can continue to absorb the cost of it. So do we challenge the original sponsors of this through DJJ, through the National Guard, going back to DOE, which I was up there 2 years ago, and I met with a number of folks with Mr. Van Zant. We couldn't get anyone to provide any additional supports for Florida Youth Challengers. Pretty much, if y'all want to keep it, they're not going to ask other districts to contribute. So we've just not had any luck to this point, but I think that Mr. Davis is willing to go back in and engage again if that's the direction you want to go, along with some help from the National Guard. Or we can pursue it through Southern Strategies as a legislative priority to try and get some money to help support the program, and through them maybe get some additional interest.
One point of note for this legislative session is last week, Rob Bradley was named to the Appropriations Committee, not Ed Appropriations, but the larger appropriations. So that could be, given that it's in his district, it could be a leverage that we can pull this year with, but given only if we don't have other legislative priorities that we want to leverage.
The issue is, and Ms. Carnegie is correct, we can't financially sustain this work. We only have 13% of the student body from Clay County attends, so many other districts are sending students as well. I think they should be held accountable.
Absolutely.
My reach will be to a point where I'm going to pick up the phone and call superintendents and talk about the percentage that they impact, and I'm going to ask them if I can, and we'll push it. You have 10%, I want 10% of the budget to cover the cost of the FTE for it. I don't know if we can get that done, but I can tell you, I can't sit here today and commit to $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 for 13% of our student body attending. I think the program's great.
Well, it's
but we gotta
not
do something
fair,
differently.
as Ms.
Not to the
Hornaday said,
organization.
that we are footing the bill. I mean, it's a good program.
For years.
And we have been footing the bill, and they've gotten away with it, so it's time to,
If we're going to foot
Put
the
up or
bill, we'll
shut up,
open it to
yeah.
our kids.
put up or shut up, because like you say, it's
Well,
13%.
now, okay, so there's another thought there. You know, I'm always thinking open enrollment. So if we footed the bill and made it an open enrollment, and it was a choice to come to a Clay County school, then their FTE would come with it.
And we could make it you could make it a school choice, military leadership choice school.
But there's such criteria to
Like
get
as,
into that.
like as an academy
It's
or
not
a
just
a
something,
charter.
it's not something that somebody can just choose to go to.
Program.
You know,
Then
there's
you're
requirements
missing the
to,
target population.
so you gotta
They
have
don't
certain
We can only
Nine,
generate
10, 11,
FTE for a
12
small
grade.
portion of the kids, and those are the kids that are not part of the GED
Oh, yeah.
portion, which
They're
is
there
the
for the-
primary supporter.
Right,
I wanna say it's,
Just a thought, you know, I'm always looking for.
Yeah.
no, Camp Landing, it's on Camp Landing.
My thought with that
And
is,
what's the duration of one of their classes?
If they They run August to December, and then they'll start again, in January.
So how, we don't own the property, we don't own any of it, so we're just,
Partnership with the
We're
military.
the educational provider.
I don't know if I have leverage.
Military.
I know, I can just say, why, I mean, is this partnership with Clay County, that's it? Is this partnership with us?
Right now, well, the partnership is
I want to
between
partner 13%.
DJJ, the DOE, I mean, there was a number of
Yeah.
original
But, Madam
participants.
Chair.
But as
then-
DJJ, they're just not wanting to put any money in
No.
now? Well, you know what? Sorry, Charlie.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
to Chair, Ms. Cornegay, these people, if they're not contracted, then they're gonna fall back in my unit and Cespa's unit.
That's correct.
We don't have a designation of lead instructor in our unit either, so we need to redesignate that person there. You can make them a head of department, something like that.
Yeah.
But here's
Yeah,
my
department
thing.
chair.
We always, because this means I've got to now think about bringing FACA back in, because I was glad they were contracted out, even though we were never consulted. But then I didn't make a stink, I just said, go, goodbye. I never understood, and maybe Mr. Davis, you can find this out, why we foot the entire bill of this school, and yet we don't have all the students of that school. And not only that, it comes back and reflects on our school grades,
Great, yeah.
on everything else, and no one helps us pay for this. So I'm kind of, I don't know about this, I haven't seen her pass out yet, but I'd be passing out if I was her. And you know, we're struggling to be over 3%, and yet we're talking about essentially reopening this school and taking the cost of it
Because we're good
all on
guys.
us.
Because we're good guys.
Because
We didn't always,
why?
we didn't always put the whole.
You can't say we're in partnership with anybody if they're not not paying into it. We're not partnershiping with DJJ or the
They
military
were paying some.
because they no longer pay anything.
Yeah.
So it isn't a partnership.
So we're talking
They're
about,
holding us captive.
we're talking about 17 kids that are ours. I can find an additional,
17?
I can find an additional pathway from 17 learners in this.
Absolutely you can.
All right.
So quick
Ms.
question.
Gilhouse,
Yeah,
sorry.
So when are you bringing this to us? Are you gonna bring this?
We're gonna do some work now.
Okay, Ms. Gilhousen?
Is this a pet project that we put before Senator Bradley ever before? Is this something that we have?
I would have
Yes,
expected.
yes,
I would
yes.
expect that
This
top
is
eight
like
dollars.
his wheelhouse. Everything that he fights for in the
Yeah.
Senate has to do with the Department of Juvenile Justice, Case Center for Girls. Like, this is his,
And
I would think that
I
he
think
could
if you
get a.
talked to him, maybe was it 2 years ago or 3 years
did.
ago? He was involved in bringing in some funds for us.
He actually
Like a-
secured that additional funding 2 years ago for us, not as much
Right.
as
Right.
we had wanted, that was what
Right.
we
It was
was
about half of it, right.
But
So-
now with him on the Appropriations Committee, like you said, it's not an Ed Appropriations Committee, but this isn't strictly an educational program.
Right, we just have to be careful we don't pull our lever with him. If this is not that financially important for us, so if
Yeah,
we can
that-
take our
that-
17, I'm not
No,
trying to
that's
sound
it.
as
This
cold
is
as I
right.
sound.
Right.
I know I
But
sound
that's-
cold.
But that's a
Well,
fact.
No, you don't.
Yes.
But if we can pull our 17 kids, put them on a different pathway,
I
pray
agree.
for the ones who we're leaving behind, because
I
we're
agree,
leaving them
because
behind.
really,
But their school can take care of them.
But
and
their
they'll
school
take care of
district
ours.
should be
I
the
agree
And
with that.
And then use our leverage with him on the Appropriations Committee for our other
Yeah.
legislative objectives.
And then I agree, and then to Renee Lee's point, I'm sorry, to the chair, to Renee Lee's point, that doesn't impact us when they go Clay County F
Right.
in school grade
Exactly.
because of the mobility
That
rate
is
and what they're
hurting
trying
us.
to do.
We've
So-
actually resolved that issue. The DOE has finally agreed to
Aye.
make them an alternative program. So they'll come off of our, both our graduation rates and our school
So
grades.
now it's
I
going
think
to
they're
cost.
doing ahead, that won't be an issue.
Okay,
So was
so
there
let's all
any-
do some homework.
Was there,
Yeah.
is there any more discussion on this, or we're good? Did you have anything else?
No, ma'am, I'm
All right,
good.
any board members have anything?
I do a workshop for legislative priorities. That's the only thing I need to get on this calendar.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask that, I called, Cummings' office, Representative Cummings' office. Do you have the date that they're going to have their,
The
Legislative
legislative
public-
the
I'll
delegation.
call Rob Bradley.
because they
ask
gave us
him-
July 5th, it's not Rob, he's not doing it this year.
Travis is the chair.
Travis is the chair. So the 5th of January or the 30th. That's the two dates they have and they'll make a decision shortly. I was hoping you knew.
No, I don't.
Okay, the 5th or the 30th
Which
is
is,
what Mr. Representative Cummings,
Legislative delegation, it's when the legislators
and I
that are
intend to speak in
designated,
front of
so
them.
that would be Bobby Payne, Travis Cummings, and Rob Bradley. Will
Correct.
come to the BCC chambers and they hear the public
okay.
on legislative priorities.
Mhm.
We will need to know what our legislative
Mhm.
priorities are in there in the
Right.
past.
So that we can go
And
before
usually
Right.
I have attended it,
Mhm.
and Ms. Gilhussen's attended it, several others
We've
have.
done it for years before.
But usually who speaks on the behalf of the school district is
The
either
superintendent,
superintendent or the
right.
deputy superintendent.
Right.
So we will want to have our legislative priorities done by then.
Yeah, that's my.
Yeah.
And that was my question.
Don't we have a board
That was my
meeting the
question to
5th?
you guys, because I wanna know what yours is, because I kinda have a
Isn't it a board
big
meeting?
idea
So
what
we'll
ours
work
is.
with, I'll work with staff and Ms. Carnegie to identify our priorities and we'll share.
Well, we can't have a workshop on the 11th because we won't have adopted. And we have to have adopted our legislative priorities for them to be presented. So we
So it
would
depends
need,
on when that meeting is.
yeah, so we need to have our legislative priorities adopted at the January 5th meeting.
Absolutely.
Right. But we don't actually have to have a workshop unless you guys all feel
But that's
strongly
one of
about
the
it.
dates.
We can email our concerns, what we want, to Ms. Cornegay. She can email out, pick your top 3, or we can discuss it at the next meeting, next week. So we email them to her, we discuss it next week, we finalize it, we'll take a few minutes and talk about, we'll add it to the agenda now for next week's meeting, that we will discuss our legislative priorities or maybe
Because
this
we might
action
go with
item.
January 5th.
Yeah, if they go with January 5th,
To have it finished this month, because
I
if our
think
meeting
so.
is on the
Yes.
5th, that's kind
Yeah.
of.
of course, if they have it on the 5th, we won't really make all of it, because they usually don't start till 4 o'clock, I think, right?
I will call,
Yeah.
I will call Representative Cummings and ask him not to have it on the 5th since we have a school
board
meeting.
meeting.
And the public would like to go to vote.
Right.
Good answer.
So-
Good idea.
Can you let me know when it is?
So email your concerns, and you can look at FSBA and the national and other districts and see what theirs might have been, or whatever to Ms. Cornegay. And then, Ms. Bush, please put an item on the agenda for us to, our legislative priorities, it'll be an action item.
And let me know what your concerns are.
Was there any other comments from anyone? Are we good with that? Okay, I just have one thing as school board member. Email me your top 3 choices for graduation assignments. I know you're gonna be Keystone because your
I've
son is
lobbied for
graduating.
Keystone because I have a child graduating and that would be terrible
So-
for the
Oh,
mothers.
Does
no,
anybody
you
else
better
want
do that.
Keystone?
You better be a Keystone. No, Wayne got to do it for our son Chris, and it's way too emotional. You gotta do it.
Yes.
Was there anybody else?
Especially
I vote for she gets Keystone, no question.
You just don't wanna drive down there.
Well, I know,
It's
but
taken a
no,
village to get this child there.
No, that's,
And you have, Oak Cliff has requested you personally.
Well, that mother did, but Mary said. she
no,
wanted-
I'm good, I'm good.
No,
Well, just let me know where you
I don't
want.
need it.
I'll take the last one, so.
Cause I thought.
Are you going to claim?
All right.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Because I-
Thank you.